Hi.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to an episode of Dr. Kamiko's Keto, where I'm here with the lovely Nikki from my sugar addiction group, and she's absolutely wonderful. And we're going to talk today about a new normal.
Yes, yes. So me and Cami have been on this sugar-free journey for a while now. Not perfection, we're very honest about that. But we've made a lot of progress. And we were talking about psychologically how that progress feels and how the new normal sometimes feels strange. So,
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
And how, I was thinking about this about how when life is going really good, I'm on my food plan and I'm eating right and I'm feeling good and I'm not eating sugar, flour, or drinking caffeine, and how that's starting to feel like a new normal for me. I've been doing it, for a couple of years now. I still have episodes where I'm binging, and so it's not perfect, but definitely feeling like this is something that is starting to not be so uncomfortable with me and starting to be more happening more times than not. So it's starting to feel like a new normal for me. And that really pleases me, that I can go through life eating this way and being able to make right decisions in right situations where I'm staying on my food plan. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and it's a process of letting go, right? Because the old us was like clinging to so many things that we thought we needed and we really didn't. And then one by one, we're like letting them go. And it's sort of like a letting go process and then getting used to the new you. And it feels weird sometimes. Like even this weekend with my family, I was telling Cami at Disneyland, like, my son a couple of times was like they were trying to offer me something sugary, and he was like, "Oh, yeah, my mom doesn't eat sugar." It's like I
So
don't even
cool.
have to speak up for myself because he'll tell them that, you know? And they don't they know kind of sort of that, um, bread and, like, starchy stuff like that is sugar, but not really. But anyhow, the sugary stuff, like, he just knew to be like, "Nope."
That's so wonderful that you have his support.
Yeah, so it's really cute. But yeah,
Yeah.
it feels weird because the old me was like the one, diving in first for the sugar thing, that the whole family was gonna eat. But now I'm like, "No, go ahead, you can have it." So,
Right. And so we were talking before we started taping about how if you have the right motives behind eating something, that might not be something that you planned, but it's something that came up in the certain situation, the certain environment that you were in, where you're with people and you have what we call witnesses, right? To you
mhm,
eating that food. And it's socially the right situation. And you're feeling good about eating the food and you're feeling like you're not going to overindulge. That might be something that you could go ahead and do if you have the right motives. And I don't really feel like I'm at that point yet. I still feel like I do really well when I'm on my plan, or if I go off plan, it's just with me trying to like replace one protein for another protein, or maybe a different, like maybe I ended up getting behind schedule and I don't end up going to eat, can't get home to eat my food. So I go somewhere else to eat my food. Like one of the places I like to go to is Chipotle
uh-huh,
because I know that they have, all fresh made food and that there's no sugar in any of their products. And so I just, I don't get the rice and I don't get the beans and I don't have any of the chips or tortillas or any of that stuff and
yeah.
can really enjoy their food. It's very flavorful and those kinds of things. But tell them about what you did on your trip. I thought it ended up really well and how you felt afterwards.
Yeah, so I was telling Cami there was a flower item that was at the California Adventure side, and it was like a special shape and everything because it was New Year, and the New Year is Year of the Horse. And so we had had some of it, and and I was able to have a taste of it and have some of it, and then just know that I'm not going back to having a flour thing. Like I'm not going back to eating flour as a regular part of my life. Like, I had it because it was a taste of something with my family. Like she said, I had witnesses and I was eating it in front of God and everybody. And I wasn't gonna, go back home and like be in the pantry eating all my old flour items that I used to eat. Like that was just not part of the deal. It's funny once we change our identity and we're like sugar and flour free, if we do have something that's off plan, like it almost feels weird because your brain is saying, wait, this is not our identity anymore. Why are you having this? but you can say, well, I'm just having a taste, or I'm having it in this very specific setting. And it has to, like you said, it has to be controlled. And you have to know that there's boundaries and this is not going to be happening on everyday time. And you can do that, but you have to be very careful with that. And like Cami said, you have to know yourself and know if you're in a good place to do that. Because if you're not, and you do think that it's going to put you in the ditch for days or weeks or months or God forbid years, it's not the right time to do that. And it might not be the right time on your journey to have a dalliance like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And the other thing too is that I think that not only like what happens to you physically when you ingest, those items, but also what happens psychologically to you, I think is really important. Like when I was at my consciousness conference, I was telling Nikki, I went out and there was after dinner, there was another lecture that happened. And we
Hmm.
went to this extra lecture and they were having desserts there, and I had a dessert item that I ate with the other people that were there. They also ate the same item. And then the next day I ate a half a sandwich that had some flour item on it. And I told myself, oh my gosh, you're off plan. This is not good. This makes you crave food really, really bad. And then the bully was coming into my head, telling me all of this stuff. And sure enough, in between walking from the conference over to my son's house, I ate all this food. I binged basically on all the items walking up to my son's house on the sidewalk. I had all this food. I'm just sitting there eating it as I'm walking up to my son's house. And I think that a lot of that was because of the psychological stress that I put on myself, telling myself, oh, you ate off plan. Oh, you know what that does? That makes you crave things, and that makes you, want more and more and more. And you're not going to be able to say no. And you just might as well give in, because if you don't, then, it's going to be for the next 3 days, you're dealing with these cravings and,
Hmm.
kind of convincing myself that I'm ready to eat something that's not on my plan. And so you have to, like next time something comes up, I'm going to look really, really carefully at my motives and decide whether or not it's a situation where I could do something. And then, like, I'm thinking in the future for quite a while, I probably should say, no, it's not right for me because I'm just not in my new normal enough yet.
Yeah.
But when you hit the new normal, or when you do it, you can get back on track the next day. Like, explain to them about like the foraging with Richard Johnson.
Yeah. So I was telling Cami, like, be that it is May, I was able to have that item and not want to have it the next day and know that I couldn't go off the deep end and reincorporate that thing into my life. But my body doesn't know that. My body is still carb sensitive and it's still weight sensitive. Carbs still make me fluffy. So, and Dr. Richard Johnson, he's brilliant. He wrote all about uric acid and he wrote about fructose and what it does to us. And he described how in nature wants us to be fat because fat is survival. And so when I ate that item, I triggered my foraging response and I triggered my metabolism to think, we're in fall. We need to start foraging and eating a buttload of food so then that way we can amass fat to last through the winter. So my physiology doesn't change. I'm still a human and it's still triggered for me to start, getting ready. And yet that's not what I'm up to. That's not what I'm doing. So I still have to battle some increased hunger the next day and, kind of just know I have to eat more protein and more vegetables because physiologically my body's like, wait, I thought we were foraging. And then now I have to turn it off and say, no, we're not foraging. That was just a one time thing that I had with my family. And we're going back to the regularly scheduled program. Thank you. Bye bye.
Exactly. That's
Yeah.
perfect. That's perfect.
Yeah. So it's kind of like a duality that we have to battle, right, Cami? The physical part of it and then the mental part of it. And
Mhm.
then we have to do that battle, but we also have to make sure that we meld the two together, right? Because the mind and the body are not separate. They're all one. And what
Right.
one does affects the other. And, we know because when we eat clean, our emotions tend to be more even, and we know that what you eat affects your emotions. So it's a really symbiotic relationship, but we have to be careful with it.
Absolutely. And the last thing I'm going to say is that I think also you should give yourself some grace and a little bit of love, when you have some times that are not successful and that are not going to be moving in the right direction for good health. Give yourself some grace, because like we're saying, this is a new normal, right? You're moving into this, and it really is a journey, right? And as you go through the journey, like when I think back, 3 years ago, what I was eating compared to now, I'm like, oh my gosh. And then also when I talk to people, like I was talking to my neighbor the other day and I was explaining to her about carbohydrates and she had these juices that she was drinking and some of them had like 44 grams of sugar in it. And she's supposedly a diabetic. And I'm like, oh, well, no, you shouldn't be drinking that sweet that juice. Juice is not good. She's like, well, it comes from fruit. I'm like, no, but you need the fiber, that's why you eat the piece of fruit, not the juice. So anyway, we were talking about that. And so, just giving yourself a little bit of grace and appreciating how far you've come.
Yeah, for sure. Because I think we don't do that often enough. I don't think we celebrate the small wins. And I think it's just like, being in customer service all these years, you always remember the customers that, took you to the rails and like raked you over the coals, but you don't remember the other nine that told you you're doing a fabulous job getting them their orders and everything like that, right? Because the one stands out in your mind because for survival, you want to make sure you do something better the next time. But we do that to ourselves and we don't acknowledge the 9 times that we did so well. We just think about the one time we didn't. So we have to
Ex-
celebrate the good times and the wins.
exactly.
Yeah.
All right, cool. All right, everybody. Yay. Celebrate your wins. And
And the new normal. Get used to it. The water's fine.
your new normal. Yeah. So enjoy that. And, first it's uncomfortable, but then it's starting to get comfortable. So that's great news.
Yes.
All right, everybody. Take care. We'll see you next
Love
time.
you guys.
Bye.